Don't ever come close to her again.
Get off!
You'll give my empire an heir. I'll give your child my name, my protection, my power. Your father's treatment will be paid in full. You will never beg again.
The day she thought her life was over was the day a billionaire made her an offer that would change everything. Juliet sat alone in the hospital hallway, her hands trembling over her stomach. The baby moved. A reminder. A living proof of betrayal. Prince Dan was gone. His phone unreachable. His promises, lies. Tears rolled down her cheeks, slow, heavy, uncontrollable. Then the hallway went silent. Security guards lined up. Black luxury shoes stepped forward. Fred. The powerful multi-billionaire. The man in the luxury red suit. Cold. Commanding. Untouchable. He didn't look at her with pity. He looked at her like a decision. I need a wife, he said calmly. Juliet blinked through tears. What? My empire is under attack. My board wants stability. My enemies smell weakness. I need a respectable wife, immediately. She felt insulted. Humiliated. I'm pregnant, she whispered, her voice breaking. Fred stepped closer. His voice lowered. I know. Her heart stopped. I know who the father is. I know what he did to you. And I know he will never claim you publicly. Her chest tightened. Fred's jaw hardened. But I will. Silence. You'll give my empire an heir. I'll give your child my name. My protection. My power. Your father's treatment will be paid in full. You will never beg again. Juliet's tears streamed faster. This wasn't love. This was a contract. But survival doesn't ask for romance. Behind Fred's cold voice was something else. A flicker. A softness he refused to show. Because the truth was, Fred had been watching her long before Prince Dan. And now, she was standing at a crossroads. Return to humiliation. Or marry the most powerful man in the city. Her lips trembled. Why me? Fred paused. And for the first time, the billionaire looked vulnerable. Because you're the only woman who didn't chase my money. Her heart skipped. But just as she was about to answer, her phone buzzed. A message from Prince Dan. I made a mistake. Let's talk. Juliet's tears turned from pain to rage. And Fred saw it. He extended his hand. Choose power. Her hand hovered in the air. And the screen fades to black. The moment she reached for the billionaire's hand was the moment her past decided to fight back. Juliet's fingers trembled in the air. Fred's hand was still extended. Strong. Steady. Powerful. Choose power, he repeated quietly. Her phone was still glowing in her other hand. Prince Dan's message burned into her eyes. I made a mistake. Let's talk. A mistake. Her tears stopped. Her pain turned cold. Without looking at the phone again, Juliet placed her shaking hand into Fred's. The security guard straightened. The decision was made. But fate wasn't finished. That same night, Prince Dan stormed into Fred's corporate gala, a high-profile event streamed live to investors and media. Fred stood tall in his luxury red suit, commanding the room like a king. Juliet stood beside him in an elegant black gown, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. For the first time, she wasn't hiding. She was standing beside power. The crowd whispered. Then the doors burst open. Prince Dan. Disheveled. Desperate. Furious. You can't marry him, he shouted across the ballroom. The music stopped. Cameras turned. Fred didn't flinch. Juliet's heart pounded so loudly she thought she would collapse. Prince Dan walked closer, ignoring security. "She's carrying my child." Gasps filled the hall. Juliet felt exposed. Naked. Humiliated all over again. Fred's jaw tightened. But his voice? "Come." "And where were you?" Fred asked coldly, "when she needed you?" Prince Dan froze. Juliet's eyes filled again, but not with weakness. With truth. "You left me," she said, her voice breaking but strong enough to echo. "You called our child a burden." Prince Dan's silence was louder than any confession. The room shifted. The investors. The media. The whispers. Fred stepped forward. "She is under my protection now," he declared. "And any attack on her is an attack on me." The statement wasn't romantic. It was war. But that night, something unexpected happened. After the gala. After the chaos. After the headlines exploded online. Juliet found Fred alone on the balcony. The city lights reflected in his eyes. For the first time, he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked tired. "You didn't have to defend me like that," she whispered. He didn't turn around. "I don't defend what isn't mine." Her breath caught. Was she his? Or just part of the empire deal? She gathered courage. "Is this really about your empire, Fred?" Silence. Then slowly. "No." He turned. And the mask was gone. "It's about the fact that I watched you cry in that hospital hallway, and I realized I would destroy anyone who made you feel that small." Her heart shattered all over again. Not from pain. But from something she wasn't ready for. Love. But before she could speak, her phone rang again. Unknown number. She answered. A woman's voice whispered. "If you marry Fred, your baby won't survive." The call ended. Juliet's words spun. Fred saw the color drain from her face. What happened? Her lips trembled. "Your enemies," she whispered. "They know about the baby." Fred's eyes darkened into something terrifying. Not fear. Not shock. Rage. Cold billionaire rage. He pulled out his phone. "Activate full security protocol," he ordered calmly. "Now." He looked at Juliet. And for the first time, she understood something terrifying. Loving Fred meant stepping into a battlefield. And someone was willing to hurt her child to get to him. The baby she thought was a mistake was never meant to exist. The penthouse was locked down. Armed security everywhere. Bulletproof glass. Private doctors on standby. Fred stood at the window, city lights behind him like a kingdom at war. Juliet sat on the couch, trembling. That anonymous call still echoed in her ears. "If you marry Fred, your baby won't survive." She looked up at him. Who would want to hurt a child? Fred didn't answer immediately. Because he knew. And he didn't want to say it out loud. The next morning, Fred ordered something drastic. A full DNA test. Not because he doubted her. But because his enemies were ruthless. If there was even a 1% chance the baby was tied to something bigger, he needed to know. Juliet felt insulted. "You think I'm lying?" Fred walked toward her slowly. "No," he said softly. "I think someone else is." 2 days later. The results arrived. Fred opened the sealed envelope alone in his office. His face didn't change. But the air did. Because the results said something impossible. The baby was not Prince Dan's. Fred stared at the paper again. Impossible. Juliet had only been with one man. Unless something had been done without her knowing. His blood ran cold. He rushed downstairs. Juliet stood as soon as she saw his face. "What is it?" Fred's voice was controlled, too controlled. The baby isn't dance. She laughed nervously. That's not possible. He handed her the paper. Her hands shook as she read. Her vision blurred. No, that's wrong. Fred stepped closer. There's more. He swallowed. The genetic markers match my bloodline. Silence. The word stopped. Juliet's heart dropped into her stomach. What are you saying? Fred's jaw tightened. I'm saying, the child you're carrying is biologically mine. Her knees almost gave out. That's insane. We've never. Then her mind flashed back. The night at the charity gala. She remembered feeling dizzy. Prince Dan had left her alone for almost an hour. Fred had found her fainting near the private lounge. He carried her to a guest suite so she could rest. She remembered water. Darkness. Then waking up later, confused. Her breath became shallow. You wouldn't, she whispered. Fred's voice cracked for the first time. I would never touch you without consent. His eyes were burning, not with guilt, but with realization. Someone used us. The pieces clicked together. Medical-level DNA alteration. Embryo manipulation. Corporate sabotage. This wasn't about jealousy. This was about inheritance. Fred's empire had no direct heir. If his biological child existed, control of billions would shift permanently. Juliet backed away. So I was a target before I even knew it. Fred's voice dropped into something dangerous. Yes. Her pregnancy wasn't an accident. It was engineered. Then the final blow came. Fred's head of security rushed in. Sir, we found the source of the anonymous call. Fred didn't blink. Who? The guard hesitated. It's from someone inside the company. Pause. Your former fiancé. Juliet's breath caught. Fred went still. The woman who was supposed to marry him last year. The woman who mysteriously disappeared from public life. She runs a biotech division overseas, the guard continued. Advanced reproductive technology. Juliet felt sick. She used me. Fred's eyes turned into ice. She used both of us. And then Juliet asked the one question that changed everything. Fred, if this baby is truly yours. She placed her hand on her stomach. Is this still just a contract? Fred stepped closer. Slowly. Carefully. He placed his hand over hers. His voice was no longer cold. No. Outside, thunder cracked across the sky. War had officially begun. Not between lovers, but between empires.
No.